Hello, everybody. It's 7:48 p.m. Central Time on the 2nd of May, 2026, Saturday evening here in the U.S. Hope you are doing well. Already a start of a new week overseas internationally. So I hope you have a good week. We are here to talk about seismic activity. It's been a minute since I've recorded. So we are recording. We're going to put this on YouTube when I'm done here live on Twitch so people can watch it back. And I think at this point it's probably a good idea to get a display capture turned on because we're going to be talking about a few of the earthquakes that took place this week. Some of it made news. So if you're not aware, 4.4 to 4.7 earthquake struck down in South Nevada. And I made a post on X on this, but not many people check X. So want to go over and show you what's at the location. Now, the reason this made the news is because of the location that it's nearby. So let's go show it to you. Come along with me on a voyage of discovery out here into South Central Nevada. So here's the earthquake epicenter. And next to the earthquake, over here about 25, maybe 28 miles west, is the famous Area 51. Okay, and once you start getting earthquakes next to Area 51, a lot of people start to insinuate or think there's something weird going on there with Area 51. However, make note of the volcanoes, the earthquake epicenter here, the volcanoes here, and then right next to it is this valley filled with craters, but these are man-made craters. Each one of these are underground nuke test sites. And we can turn on the information from Google Earth community, and it's kind of giving us a bunch of place marks that we can click on. This one, U.S. nuke Operation Cerise, November 18th, 1966, 7 kilotons. So I guess you would call that a small nuke. There's megaton blast, thousands of kilotons. Also, just hundreds of kiloton blast in this valley alone. Then in the 1980s and the 90s, they did further blast, bigger, with the UK and France taking part here in the US and these sites here. And then we have our above ground nuke test sites that are down here, including Doomtown, Frenchman's Flat, Operation Rise Line. That's down to the south. So this whole area here is a nuke test site. On the side of the nuke test site is Area 51. On the side of Area 51 are a series of volcanoes and the earthquake striking next to the volcanoes, next to Area 51, next to the nuke test sites. So when the news gets a hold of this and all the shock jock channels, they all focus on Area 51, but longtime viewers of mine know that this location gets hit somewhat regularly. The nuke test sites and the areas around here, also just slightly north, are the lunar craters. So as we go just north, let's search again. Here's the earthquake epicenter. And we go just up here to the north, and you have the lunar craters. You also have the Goblin Knobs and a few others. They're all really interesting sites, but I would say if we're going to try and blame Area 51, in light of the alien news and the UFO stuff that's going around online right now, the president even has talked about some kind of disclosure that's getting ready to happen. So you can understand why I get a little incredulous about it, because it's just a little bit weird. But so 4.4 to 4.7 earthquake there. We get a bunch of earthquakes there regularly over the course of months. We get at least a few 3 to 4.0 earthquakes plus swarms striking next to the nuke test sites. Now, I think that's due to the man-made faults that are there, fractures in the plate from all the underground nuke tests. So think of it like cracks in the plate that go down maybe a few kilometers even, that extend out like fractures in a windshield. And then passing through the plate is a very low frequency wave, or ultra low frequency, and it's going through the area, and it comes up and drops off an earthquake there along the way as it reflects back and forth as it goes across the plate. That's what I think is causing the earthquake there. But that being said, then this earthquake struck. Get ready, guys. So here we go down the rabbit hole. So then this 5.1 earthquake struck, which they upgraded to 5.2. It started out at 4.9, so I was shocked to see an upgrade at all on any of these earthquakes at all. You don't normally get much of an upgrade. So what's at the location? Well, another volcano, but something else. Now we have to go back in time about a month, because a 5.8 earthquake struck here. just about a month ago, and it did make the news because it's the biggest earthquake to strike out west in many, many months, if not a year, for the whole West Coast. So now we're back with a 5.1 in a slightly different location. You see there's this body of water right here. Let's zoom in and show it to you here. It's called Carson Lake. On the north side of Carson Lake, you have this place called the Soda Lakes. Soda Lakes, let's click on it so you can see the Smithsonian place mark for this. This is a volcano, or a series of volcanoes, and that's the Soda Lake is part of it. Soda getting its name from the effervescence in the water from the bubbling that goes on there. On the north side of there's the geothermal pumping operations, plus solar farm now. Solar farm on one side, geothermal on the other. Getting steam out of the location. But the thing that I found here that's right next to here that I missed when the 5.8 struck is this. See this airport here? Well, let's zoom in a little bit more. How about this? Naval Air Station Fallon. Out in the deserts of Nevada, the Naval Air Station. All right, now this opens a huge can of worms. Naval Air Station in the desert, out here next to a little body of water that's kind of suspicious, and then next to it, the deeper Soda Lakes that are volcanic that go deep down into the plate. Then next to that, you've got Lake Tahoe and Pyramid Lake. Now, why does all this matter? Why does the military thing matter? Well, for the same reason that down to the south, if you're at a military base there. So now we're at another place where there's another military base, but a naval air station in the desert? That rings a bell because I saw a video. This gets really weird. Just bear with me here. We go back several years. I want to say it's 8 years ago, maybe 10 years ago. There was a video that was circulating online from two guys that were in the U.S. Navy. And they said, this is in the video, I'm just paraphrasing, it's many years old, I'm just going on memory here, that down here at Monterey Bay in the canyons off the shores of Monterey Bay, California, that submarines could enter somewhere down in here, and that there was an underplate ocean that extended underneath the United States, almost like the United States is a mushroom top over the top of it, and that you could take a submarine down and across through Nevada. And they said in the video forever ago that the submarines could come up at lakes in Nevada, and they didn't say where. They didn't name any names. So now I'm zooming in. I see lakes in Nevada. I see a naval air station there, and it reminded me of this video where the guy said that underneath North America was an ocean, and it was caverns that were huge that submarines could go through. And they said that it extended all the way over, or at least portions of the caverns of the undersea ocean, go over to St. Louis, where I'm from. And that caught my interest in the video because they said that the submarines could get worked on here in St. Louis and either go back the way they came or go down out of the Mississippi through the lock and dam system for smaller subs. And I couldn't believe what I was hearing at the time. But now here we are. And we get a deep earthquake down below the location where there's a naval air station. I didn't know there was a naval air station out here in the desert. There could be a reason why they would have a naval air station out in the desert for some reason here far from the sea. But that being said, it's a little bizarre that we get the earthquake down below the military base in light of the other big earthquakes that struck in the past few months, that struck across the plate, and rare earthquakes that struck over on the East Coast, for instance, at the military bases, which was the topic of two of my videos, of the past two videos that I did. We were zooming in, and lo and behold, zoom in, we're going right next to a military base. Now, this all goes back to the biggest earthquake in the past 10 years for the whole East Coast. Many of you might not remember this. It was about 2 years ago. In the last 10 years, a 5.0 earthquake, which they downgraded quickly to a 4.8, struck in New Jersey at a place called Bedminster, New Jersey, up here. And at Bedminster, where the earthquake struck, it turned out the earthquake was right below Donald Trump's golf course. Another place, but this is right before the election. So down below Donald Trump's golf course, the biggest earthquake in the past 10 years struck, 4.8. And then the drone thing happened right over the location, those weird drones that they couldn't identify what they were, who was operating them. And everybody ignored the earthquake below Trump's golf course. But at the same time, down here at Joint Base Charleston, we had earthquake on the same day down below it. And it happened again and again and again, back and forth from like different bases all the way up the East Coast. And I believe this is induced by a very low frequency that they're using either for communication or one of our enemies is trying to look down into these locations, getting back to this location here in Nevada now. So let's suppose that up in space or up in the sky, that they have an aircraft or a vehicle that's capable of generating very low frequency, or from far away and reflecting it around the ionosphere. Let's say the Chinese or the Russians. And they wanted to see down below this location to see what the US Navy was doing. They would try to do that using low frequency, ultra low frequency to penetrate down into the crust to get a reflection like a radar. The other thing that could be causing this would be a military system that they're using for communication. A low frequency system, very high power, communicating around the world, inducing earthquake activity next to it. It's possible. Third possibility is underground something or other going on there that we'll never know about, but the only way we'll ever know is with an earthquake striking there. So it's a lot of possibilities on why the earthquakes are striking next to all these different military bases, but it's kind of explained, I think, by the same reason that the earthquakes are striking next to the power plants. Whether it's hydroelectric, geothermal, nuclear power plant, or a coal fire, or a natural gas fire power plant, that we're getting the earthquakes next to those too, which also are generating low frequency. Electricity is low frequency, in case you didn't know. So generating low frequency may be precipitating the earthquakes down below. Mother Nature's wave attracted to it like a break in the plate, but it's electromagnetic. It's just a supposition on mine. I can't prove it, but I have to be able to try to explain, or at least think about, explanations for why significant earthquakes keep striking next to military bases, power plants, power stations, power lines, places where low frequency is being generated. But yet they're still natural, that the earthquakes then spread out from those locations. Now, let's talk about the rest of the plate, because take a look at it. Look at the line of earthquakes in this is the last weeks. Let's look at all of them and turn down the rings a little bit. Let me turn off the numbers here too. So here's all the earthquakes from the USGS 0.0 and greater feet over the last 6.5 days. And the bigger the ring, the bigger the earthquake. So you see our 4s and 5s out west. Then you see our 3s going over to Colorado. 2s and 1s going all the way up the East Coast. Notice the trajectory and the plot of all the earthquakes. Here's 0.0 and greater. So there's no variation on this. We're seeing the earthquakes go down around the edge of the North American Craton and trail off up the East Coast. What does this prove? Well, if you look out west, you see there's a big bundle of earthquakes that points over to, almost like a giant arrow, taking the shape of the North American Craton. And this is something I've lectured on at length in almost every video that I've shown for the last 15 years. It's kind of annoying that I have to keep doing it, but there's always somebody new. If we go look up these locations, you're going to find something significant at most of the locations all the way across the plate. So it's not like the earthquakes are just randomly striking at these spots. There's a wave that's going across the plate, I think, a wave, and it's dropping off the earthquakes at these pre-designated points that, well, Mother Nature would have dropped them off at the volcanoes along the way, which there are many along these points. But instead now, there's things like this. Let's go look up this 3.4. Ute Park, New Mexico. The biggest of the bunch across the whole Midwest in the past several days. Or the Intermountain States. I guess you don't call that in the Midwest yet. It's New Mexico. So Intermountain West, the biggest earthquake aside from the 5 over on the West Coast is here. So what's going on? What is this location? Zooming in on the location, you're going to see a bunch of pads in the mountains here. They're rectangle or square in shape. And we'll zoom in on them and you'll see there's a shadow. The shadow is of the shadow of a jack of a pump. An oil well. So we'll zoom in. Every different pad has a different oil well on it, and there's hundreds at these locations. Tanks, pumps, jacks, and pipelines. There we go. You get a good side view. It's almost like a sundial. You can see the shape of the jack of the pump there on the ground. And you'll see it goes on and on and on across the hilltops. This is a large oil and gas pumping operation in New Mexico that carries on across the border to the north. This is Colorado border, and it doesn't stop. Look how many there are up north in Colorado. Same thing. Tanks, pumps, jacks, and pipelines. There's a collection pond where they collect fresh water, then mix it with toxic chemicals and put it down into the ground. They use those black tarps, those plastic tarps, to collect the water. Anyway, Colorado's loaded with them. You see how many there are there. And it goes all across the front range of Colorado there. Is that called the front range down there? Anyway, it goes across the mountains, the foothills, all the way down to Trinidad, Colorado over to the east. And it goes all the way south down in New Mexico Just jumps right across the border. The oil companies don't care. And we go right down across over into New Mexico with this. So our biggest of the bunch so far going over to the east is at a drill point. Now, if we look at all the smaller earthquakes, let's get those all in there. And again, let's turn off the numbers really quick so you can just see where they are. Down in Texas, for instance, every single earthquake in Texas and every single earthquake in Oklahoma is at a drill point. Same with Louisiana. So once we get over to the east from there, we can start looking up the quakes and really get into it. But you don't have to take my word for it. I can just drag my mouse across the area. Every single spot where the earthquakes are here in Texas and Oklahoma is at a drill point. I've showed it 1,001 times, but for new viewers, I guess we'll just pick one from right in the middle, from the stack, from the swarm that's going on. Midland, Texas. You may have heard of Midland, Texas before if you're over a certain age. That's where the Bush family is from. Right? It's oil central down here. Wait till you see it. It's a lot. And then I can just move my mouse left and right because you can see the earthquakes are going in that trajectory. But let me just show it to you here. So you remember what we just looked at in New Mexico with the square and rectangle pads? Well, the same thing for Texas. And these are, you see, like there's a house, right? And then next to the house, you've got a pad. And at the pad, you've got trucks, tanks, pipes, and jacks that go off into the distance. And every single one of these is an oil well as well. Now, Texas is known for its drilling, but most people don't realize how much there is. It really, I would call this excessive overdrive. And I'm not like the environmentalist kind, guys, but look at how many different drill points there are. It's like 1 million right here alone. Again, remember what I told you, Midland, Texas, that's where the Bush family is from, but most people don't realize how much it's been drilled. Let's see if we can get a ground level view on this, off into the distance, see what it looks like. Just for a perspective of how many drill points and what they look like in the area. So if you were driving through the area, I guess you'd look off in the distance and you would see these little specks on the horizon, wouldn't you? You look closer and they look like dinosaurs off in the distance, don't they? Anyway, so that's what it looks like. There they are, off in the distance. Oil wells all over the place, but spread out over a vast distance. Texas is huge. So when you talk about a lot of drill points, you really have to get in perspective of the whole. We're looking at one Texas county there, and we're talking about the whole region being drilled. So let's get back and, 1 second here. Hold on. Okay, sorry. I thought I was cut, but I didn't. It was, again, my end, not yours. So from down here at the border of Texas and New Mexico, this goes right past Fort Stockton. Then over to Midland, and then up to the northeast, we go up into Oklahoma. And Oklahoma has now over 1 million drill points. Started with 500,000 back when I was doing my thing when I first got on YouTube. And you guys might not know my history on this fracking earthquake thing, but when I first started on YouTube, it was denied that fracking could cause any kind of earthquakes. The professionals all came actually to my videos and denied it openly and said there was no relation between earthquakes and fracking at all. And that Cliff Froelich, the expert, even issued a statement on the Texas News for the Texas Railroad Commission, who handles all the drill points down in Texas. The Railroad Commission does. But he said that they were extremely rare and minor, the earthquakes with fracking. Then 5 struck across Arkansas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and they then had to adjust what they thought about what could be caused by man-made drill points. So look where we are now. Here's the earthquake epicenter, and we're up in Oklahoma. I picked the middle of the bunch to look up, and you can see all the way around it, all of these squares and rectangles, just like we were looking at down in Texas and just like we're looking at in New Mexico, drill points. So each one of these, I'm proving it to you if you're a new viewer. Same with Southeast Texas, down here where the swarm is. There's actually 2 swarms down in Texas. So let's go look at Falls City, Texas, and prove to its southeast part of the state as well. It's not just the center. I'm a proof kind of guy, guys. I've been through this enough that I know if I just tell you, it's not going to sink in. No pun intended on earthquakes, sinking in. But look at the earthquake epicenter here down in Southeast Texas, and we have the same thing going on. Tanks, pumps, jacks, and pipelines. As far as the eye can see, every single one of these white squares or rectangles on the ground is a different drill point. And they connect from point to point to point, and then they move it off. It's a lot, isn't it? I mean, it really is. But you can see where the oil is here in the topography just by looking at the drill points. They've already exploited it all. It's a huge vein or a line of it going up this way along the edge of the Craton. And we can go up to the north. Here's Dallas up here, Dallas-Fort Worth. Now you can see the edge of the Craton here in the plate. It almost looks like a river valley. Let me turn off all the gobbledygook and the Google stuff. That's good enough. You should be able to see it here. It looks like a river, but really it's a bulge. This is a 1,000-foot rise. You go from down here at, what's our elevation? Let me turn on our terrain here. There we go. So we're going from 400 feet above sea level. You get to here, and you rise up to 1,400 feet, 1,600 feet. This is a bulge. And it's the southern edge of the Craton. So let's go back to my diagram here. You see where we have the arrow there. The seismic wave goes along this edge, up into Oklahoma, which I just showed you, and then over to the east to the New Madrid seismic zone. So let's go pull up the earthquakes there and see what's going on over to the east. One lone earthquake on the New Madrid in the past several days. Tiptonville, Tennessee, that says. But let's go look it up and go see what's there, shall we? So we looked up the military bases. We looked up the drill points. We looked up a few volcanoes along the way. Earthquake epicenter is here along the Mississippi River, but there's the town of New Madrid. Do you see that right there? But look what they decided to build right outside of town of New Madrid. A giant coal-fired power plant. Generating electricity here on the fault. Coal-fired power plant. Good idea? I don't know. But right next to the power plant, we have the New Madrid town itself, and we have our earthquake on the south side of the power plant. Now, there's a few other interesting things here, but I don't want to take too much time looking them up. It's far enough away that I wouldn't say it's directly related. Is the Native American structures that are built into the ground there. In case you don't know, right outside of town of New Madrid, there's the Native American mounds, which they built a cemetery at. It's called the Mounds Park Cemetery right here. Here's the mound. And there's the graveyard they built around it. And there's the Mounds Park Cemetery. They built the public school right next to it. Nothing go wrong there. Maybe they built the school there to scoop it out to see what's down in the ground. They would never do that, though. Let's go over to the east and take a look over on the east coast, see if there's anything worth mentioning earthquake-wise to the northeast. Okay. Hey, now, let's go up here to the north. 2.9 earthquake striking on the Canada side of the border. But I think this is worth looking up because I looked it up earlier this week and I have not done a recorded update for my YouTube audience. Get a load of this. A rare 3.0 earthquake struck right at the Canada border with Michigan. But wait till you see what's here. You already see my place mark. It's a big red triangle with an exclamation mark in it. But what is it? It's the nuclear power Fermi 2 nuclear reactor. So we're right across. This is 11 miles away. I already measured it, but again, right here. We're 11 miles east of the nuclear power plant. Now on the military base, remember what I told you about the military bases, the power plants, over and over and over again. We get them all around the world. You may even remember the big Japan earthquake. It was right next to the Fukushima nuclear power plant over in Japan. The biggest earthquake in the East Coast in the last 50 years struck in 2011 down here in Virginia at a place called Mineral, Virginia, but right next to the Lake Anna nuclear power plant in Virginia. So just example after example of power plants getting in. It's not just nuclear. I already just showed you down in the New Madrid seismic zone, a small earthquake next to the coal-fired power plant. So I think it has to do with very low frequency. Electricity is very low frequency. We're generating it on the surface, putting it out across the transmission lines. Mother Nature is sending a very low frequency wave through the plate, and you get a scalar, an area where the two cross, an electromagnetic area down in the plate, a few hundred, maybe a few thousand feet, and the two precipitate, and you get a third wave or break that comes out of that, the scalar. They're doing scalar Higgs boson experiments over at CERN by colliding particles riding on the back of high-power microwaves. But that's to collide particles. This would be the collision of electromagnetic very low-frequency waves down in the plate. Again, it's supposition on my part, but I have to come up with an explanation. So there you go. Let's go down and look at Lowville, New York. Did not look up this earthquake earlier. I have no idea what's there. It's a true wild card. Don't recall having to look up any earthquakes at Lowville before. So let's go up into central New York, I suppose. See if there's anything there worth mentioning. It's not an explosion or anything, is it? Hold on. No, it's 2.2 kilometers down in the plate. Well, that's pretty interesting because it's right next to a quarry, but it's 2.2 kilometers down in the plate. There's another perfect example. Let's just make sure there's nothing else here nearby. Well, we have a lined pond. Interesting, a lined pond. Usually, you guys may not know, New York used to be a major oil producer back in the late 1800s and early 1900s. Okay, but I digress on that. What is this location? It looks like some kind of farm of some kind. So we got a farm there. Okay, I mean, I don't see anything else here nearby that's huge. I don't see any power plants. Oh, wait, hold on. Large transmission lines, huge sets of them. 1, 2, 3, 6 sets of high voltage power lines. The only trunk, man, that's the only trunk of high voltage power lines for 100 miles. Wow. Okay, where do these go? Do these go up to Niagara Falls or something? Or back down to? Huh. Interesting. I bet these do. Ah, okay, hold on. We're also at a location that this gets into something I could lecture on for hours, which is bulges in the plate that professionals have not noticed are giant ancient laccoliths like this. You can see it, the outline of it in the plate. We're looking at Google Earth here. But do you see it? It's made of mountains and it's circular in shape or oval in shape. Now this, you see shaped like this on the other side of the plate and further north. So here's another one here. You see how it's circular in shape up here in Canada? That's not from an impact. That's a rise. Here's one from an impact. Over to the west, we have them up in Canada up here, and they're oval in shape. Some are submerged, some are raised, but you can see one here, for instance. And we go further to the north, and there's another one here, for instance. It's circular in shape. Another one's further up to the north, partially submerged. But when I say circular, I really mean oval. Okay, and so I'm showing you these. These are in the plate. Oh, there's more down in the United States, right down here at the U.S. border here. Let's go zoom in, and a few of them are down here. That's not a depression, that's a rise. Same with this one. Well, that's a depression around it, but it rises around the outside edge. So why am I showing that to you? When we get earthquakes next to them, I start to wonder about their formation and why they form there and what caused their formation. I would think volcanism. Oh, 1 second. Sorry, had to turn off my phone. Okay. Wow. Yeah, I forget the things you forget, right? As we go far up to the north, we get up into Brunswick, Canada. Is that right? New Brunswick, Canada? Let's go put the coordinates in and go see what's up here. I think I already know it's here, but I don't want to spoil the surprise. This is going to blow a lot of people's minds if we're going to where I think we're going. Yep, okay. All right, so let's turn on our borders and labels just so you can see. Now, do you see where it says Holton, Maine? Right here, going over to the east, do you see this? This thing right here. This is called Mount Pleasant Caldera. It's a pretty well unknown volcanic crater from a long time ago, from the time of the dinosaurs, they would say. So Mount Pleasant Caldera here. Then down along the coast, ancient supervolcanoes, some of the biggest ever known that are submerged. You can't see them here on Google. Feel free to look it up if you want. We're on the north side of there by a few miles. I would even think there may even be more up here, but that would be supposition on my part. Don't want to get into that. So, do you see the line of earthquakes? What do they all have in common? We have drill points in southern Colorado, New Mexico. We have drill points in Texas and Oklahoma. We have drill points over to the east, but those are mines and quarries, which is really weird to get that at the surface, but down below the earthquake comes up. We also have the power lines over to the east. Which ones did I not look up yet? Oh, Louisiana. Oh, Louisiana and South Missouri at the Arkansas border. Let's go look these up. Ringgold, that's Ringgold, Louisiana. Let's go look it up and see what's there. I already know, but I want to show you. Jumping back down across the plate, playing a little game of hopscotch back and forth. Remember what we looked at in New Mexico? Remember what we looked at in Texas? Look what they're doing down here in Louisiana. They're doing the same thing, but it's more like in the bayou. Here's literal bayou type area. And you see all the drill points here? These are all drill points. It's actually crazy overdrive, too, what they're doing down here in Louisiana. So this is all oil and gas, mainly gas, I think. It would make sense with the marshes, you can extract the gas, natural gas. But when you start drilling to get it, go down a few thousand feet, down and over in many cases. They can do horizontal drilling, not just vertical. But you get the picture. You see how much drilling's going on here. It's so much that if there's a seismic wave going through the plate, which there is, it seeks out a spot where there's a lot of weakness to release. So I just showed you, look where we are. All of that in Louisiana, all of this. Zooming in, to look like speckles on the ground. Every single one's a drill point. So I know oil's a hot commodity right now, and I would think maybe they're probably doing some more. So maybe they're doing new drilling, which would then, of course, attract a seismic wave. Let's go up to the north. Diamond City, Arkansas, right at the Missouri border. Now, I live in Missouri. I live west of St. Louis by about an hour. Let's go see what's there. Let me get a sip of my coffee. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to get a sip of my coffee, too, while we're zooming in. Oh, wow. That was the best sip of coffee ever. 8:20 p.m., I'm drinking coffee. I'm going to be up. Okay, so look where we are, right? We're on a south edge of a very large lake. Now, this is part of Bull Shoals Lake, isn't it? Isn't that what this place is called? Hold on. Let's turn on the places. Do we have a place mark for this lake? Did I just see it disappear? Yeah, there it is. Bull Shoals Lake. Now, this lake in particular was the subject of a study by the USGS talking about water weight-induced earthquakes. Water weight-induced earthquakes, which can happen in seismically stressed areas. And so, earthquake striking there, the USGS would attribute that to water weight earthquakes. But I personally wouldn't attribute it to water weight earthquakes. I would say that the wave is going across the plate. It's seeking out a path of least resistance, which is then going out and away and up, following to places like Bull Shoals Lake, where there's then a stress that's from the water weight that induces the earthquake there. But it's ultimately caused by the wave that's going across the whole plate. Simply put, we got 4s and 5s out west. We got 3s, 2s, and 1s up the east coast, following the edge of the Craton. The only thing missing now is Southern California to start breaking. So I would expect very soon here, Southern California, to see something in the 5 range in the next 7 days or less. Now, when I say Southern California, we have to include Mexico, right across the border. This includes Cerro Prieto, Gulf of California, going as far north as Salton Sea. So I would say Southern California, following most likely the San Jacinto, west of Salton Sea, or south of Salton Sea. And magnitude on that? Well, we already had a 5.7. We also have a 5.1. We have 4.7, which is downgraded to a 4.4, down next to Area 51. And we don't have any 4s or 3s, any 4s or 5s going across the plate yet over to the east. This would mean that the wave is trapped on the west coast, and we would watch for Southern California to break before the wave escapes out to the east, dropping off 4s across the plate in Texas, Oklahoma, and Quebec, Canada. So that's what I'm going to look for in the next 7 days. Now, are we going to look up all the smaller earthquakes? I doubt it. We would spend the rest of the day looking up smaller earthquakes across California. For instance, there's the fault zones that are moving. San Andreas Fault, the Laccolith in the east part of the valley over there next to Coarse Gold, giant volcanic feature in the east part of the valley, in case you didn't know that. 2.6 is the only one I don't know where it's at. Granite Bay, California. I don't know what's at this location, so maybe I should go look this up. The other ones, if I know what's there, I'll tell you about it, but I mean, do we really need to look up the volcanic feature in the central part of the valley? Unless you don't know about it, and then we can show it to you, but. Okay. Oh, you can't. I've gone out on Twitch. Hold on. If you've gone out on Twitch, you might need to refresh it. I've been streaming now for I don't know how many hours. It could have kicked out again. So if you're disconnected, hit refresh. Well, how would you even hear me? I would need to go in and type it into the chat room for the. Never mind. I'm recording. I'm going to put this on YouTube. We don't want to bother people with what's going on live on Twitch. Okay. Live stream may have cut out on Twitch. I don't know. So 2.6 up here to the north. Let's go finish this up really quick. What was I talking about? I was talking about the volcanoes and the laccoliths in California. Now you see this? See where it says Rescue California? We'll turn off all the place marks and everything else. So when you look at it this way, you'll see there's actually a feature here. Circular or oval in nature, and it rises up to the center 1,346 feet, 13 to 1,500 at the center, goes down to 1,000 on one side, and over on the other side it goes back down to 1,000 on the other. So this thing rises to 1,500 to 1,600 feet. That is a giant laccolith. But that's one of many that are down on the east side of the plate. Here's another one right here. This is coarse gold, California. It's a giant circular shape here. It's a bulge in the plate, but it is parallel, or at least across from, the supervolcano known as Long Valley Caldera here. And you'll see Long Valley Caldera and coarse gold, they're about the same size and shape. Supervolcano blew out on one side, and on the other, there's a bulging laccolith that gets hit with earthquakes. So this one is the same thing, bulging laccolith getting hit with earthquakes. But you might also know that this is the area, generally speaking, that had all the fires that took place up here. And I don't want to get into that, but we had all the fires with Oroville, and you had the fires with Paradise, all the fires breaking out on the edges of these laccoliths. Now, a laccolith is a bulge in the plate from magma that pushes in from down below. So it makes sense. This one down to the south really makes sense because it's parallel and to the size of, they're across from each other on both sides of Yosemite in the middle, with all its impressive mountainous features that are most likely formed by the uplift from the supervolcano on the east side, Long Valley, here, and on the west side, there's been a bulge about the same size that has never blown out. The one to the north, well, this gets in, this bulge up here to the north, this one that we got the earthquake next to now, gets into the other supervolcano up here that professionals have missed, that I've never seen anyone talk about, between Lake Tahoe and Pyramid Lake. Here's Reno down here on the southeast side of it. It's lined with volcanoes. It gets hit with earthquakes all the way around the outside edge. It is the size of Toba supervolcano over in Indonesia. It has two basins folded on either side of it, and it's a geologic feature that I couldn't find any information on. As far as I know, professionals don't know about this giant ancient supervolcanic caldera here, right at the California-Nevada border. They know about the one to the north, up here at McDermott Caldera, where they're doing new aerial surveys to try and find out about lithium below McDermott Caldera up here on the north side of, up here. See McDermott? Okay. Oh, man. All right. So we've kind of digressed, but I think we've covered the U.S. earthquakes at length. There's only a few other things to talk about, which would be the international earthquakes and also here in Hawaii. So if you're not paying attention in Hawaii, it actually went a week ago with a new eruption inside of the crater. I don't know what episode it is. It's episode 50 maybe, 50 different times in the last 2 years that Kilauea has been going. And in the last week, we have like a triangle shape of earthquakes going from Mauna Loa on the north side, down to the south, down to Loihi, and over east, south of Pu'u'o'o. Yes, Pu'u'o'o, earthquakes over there. Then we have one earthquake north of Mauna Loa, another one over west of Hualalai, and then the other one down in that undersea volcanic field that we don't have a name on. But whenever I see a line of earthquakes coming in from the northwest, I then have to watch in the central part of the island for a new break to take place, seismically speaking. I don't do the forecasting for any kind of eruptive, but I would think we're going to go up the next magnitude. So where are we at now? 3.4? So we would go up to 4s, go up in the mid-range 4. See a new 4 pop off, then a new eruption. That usually seems to be what's going on lately, is that there's seismic activity, and then it's followed by some significant eruptive activity. So keep watch there. I would suggest Lava Watchers channel on YouTube, and also Two Pineapples. They are 2 channels in Hawaii that do excellent coverage. They have live streams running. They're honest people. They don't exaggerate. And they show great views from the USGS. They even go to the volcanoes. Either one of them, they're on 24/7. They're good people. So Lava Watchers and Two Pineapples, 2 different channels. Lava Watchers is formerly doing Hawaii. So over on the West Pacific, multiple deep earthquakes. Take a look at this. It looks like a pincushion over here in the West Pacific. Now, for those who are new and you don't know, the deep earthquakes are raised high off the planet so we can see them easy. The reason we would like to see these easily is because they have an effect. They themselves don't have an effect. The seismic wave that's causing them has an effect. There's deep earthquakes happening down below the plate. Then we see shallower, larger earthquakes happen as the wave comes up. Not the wave from these earthquakes. These earthquakes are being caused by something. So the thing that's causing these earthquakes then comes up and hits the surface. It's a seismic wave. So these are a warning sign letting us know something's down below the plate now, and it's getting ready to come up. So let's go open one of these from the USGS and go show you where they are on the edge of the plate. This will make a lot of sense if you're a new viewer and you don't know anything about this. Longtime viewers already know this. So like deep earthquakes here below Fiji, up above the deep earthquakes, in the next few days, we should see shallower, larger earthquakes than what they currently are. So if it's a deep 5, we watch for up to a shallow 6 to hit up at the surface within a few days. And it's not the 5 causing the 6, it's that the 5 and the 6 that's going to happen in a few days are both caused by this seismic wave that I'm talking about. And it's a big, long, deep wave that goes out a huge distance. It's a very low frequency or ultra low frequency wave. So there's hundreds, if not thousands of miles between each wave. Spaced out, broad band, if you want to think of it like that. So the seismic wave comes up, and these earthquakes, the deep earthquakes, are a sign of that. We forecast for these, and we watch for deep earthquakes to take place where we have letter Ds. So letter D, for instance, there at Fiji. 2 letter Ds at Indonesia and Philippines, 1 at South Japan, 1 at the Sea of Okhotsk next to Kamchatka, another one over here at the Hinduistan border. Some debate on the name of the border there. And then down here to the south, South America, letter D right at the Chile-Argentina border. So there's only a few spots that we normally watch for deep earthquakes to take place. And look where they are. This is the USGS feed showing them all. And they're right on our letter Ds. So you can forecast and look for earthquakes to take place here that are deep. And then you watch for the wave to come up and spread out and away. When you start seeing multiple deep earthquakes taking place in 1 day's time, 2 days' time, it means something big is going on down below the whole region. So let's go look at the region. Fiji, Indonesia, Philippines, Japan. 3 different areas. It's like a big triangle, and that area down below, Japan, Indonesia, Fiji, has something going on right now, hence the deep earthquakes. So we watch for in between the deep earthquakes, for a big break to happen in between each set of deep earthquakes. So it would mean 2 noteworthy earthquakes are going to be taking place, at least one between these 2, and the other between these 2. Between Japan and Indonesia, there'll be 1, and between Indonesia and Fiji, there'll be another. Both should be bigger than the combined total of everything on both sides. And how would you add all this up? Well, we've devised a way to add up the magnitudes. It's pretty simple. It takes 10 of one earthquake to equal the next one up. So it takes 10 ones to equal a 2. And it takes 10 twos to equal a 3. And it takes 10 threes to equal a 4. And it takes 10 fours to equal a 5. And it takes 10 fives to equal a 6, and so forth up the chain. So when I see 10 different 5s, I can add that up and say, okay, that's about a 6.0's worth of energy spread out across 5,000 miles with a bunch of 5s. And so in between these deep earthquakes, we now watch for a shallower, larger earthquake that goes up into the mid to upper 6.0 level. So a bunch of 5s and a bunch of deeps. In between the 5s and the deeps, we watch for a shallower, larger earthquake to pop off at what we call the fulcrum point or the middle point. Now, middle point's simple. It's a halfway point between two sets of earthquakes, or a triangulated point between three sets of earthquakes. And we have to follow these lines, the lines of the plate boundaries. They are guiding the wave. They're containing this wave I'm talking about. So between Japan and Indonesia, two deep earthquakes, something's going to come up and pop between the two deeps. And it should be the halfway point between the two deeps. But what's the halfway point along these uneven lines? So we have to trace it out. And we go down and around past Taiwan and come down through Philippines into Indonesia. And what would you say the halfway point is between this earthquake and this earthquake? I would say it would be somewhere right in here. So we'd go on one side of the plate boundary. Right here, this goes into Philippines, North Philippines. Now you'll notice there's another plate boundary. It's shaped like a diamond. This goes along the Izu Ridge down past Guam. Down here to the south, there's Guam. And so the wave should go both. That means there's going to be two earthquakes of equal size. One on one side, one on the other, dividing the wave in half. This means a 6 on one side and a 6 on the other. Or, don't fault me, no pun intended, if it's a 5.9 on one side and a 5.9 on the other. But something like a 6 should pop off in between these two. Then, in between these two down here, it's a much greater distance between Indonesia and Fiji. But nonetheless, no matter what the distance is, we find the halfway point between the deep earthquakes. So between those 2 points, what's the halfway point? It comes in somewhere here in the Solomon Sea. It's a very well-known earthquake location, and it should be the bigger of the two. So on these different earthquakes that are going to strike, the bigger of the bunch should strike here. Most likely. If it's flip-flop, so be it, but I see that there's 5s, deep 5s, and deep 4s on one side, and just deep 4s and deep 4s on the other. So, bigger, greater wave coming up in between. And it's going to come up into the weak point in between the two, the halfway point. This is like a standing wave in a pool. You guys ever see that? People get a raft in a pool and start jumping up and down. And it makes a wave, and it goes across the pool, and it comes back to the person on the raft. They do it again, and it makes another wave. You got 2 waves going across. Next thing you know, the waves are going all the way across the pool and coming back to the person who's making the waves in the pool to begin with. Then another person gets the bright idea to do it, and you have 2 people making waves in the pool. They're both jumping up and down on their rafts. And next thing you know, you get what are called standing waves that start to form in the pool. They're uniform in size and shape, and they start knocking the other people off the rafts because the energy that's in the pool cannot be contained, and the waves start to go up. They'll come up and out and go out of the pool. And if it's an above-the-ground pool, you can actually knock the pool down by doing this. Don't do that, by the way. But a standing wave. So the same thing is going on with a standing wave across a huge distance, though. It's thousands of miles. But the halfway point, the wave comes up. The halfway point between the 2 previous waves. So think of these like 2 waves. And then the halfway point between them, the new wave pops off that's bigger between the 2. Then it spreads. And that gets into earthquake forecasting, which again, open a can of worms on earthquake forecasting beyond it spreading. So we watch 7 to 10 days for the deep earthquakes and the shallower, larger earthquakes and the spread to take place. There could be a lot more to talk about. We can talk about South America. We can talk about going across the South Sandwich Islands. Check it out. Check it off the list. South Sandwich struck by 5s. We can trace that back to the 5s that came across, went down and over. And the color coding on this tells us this one struck first, then this one struck today. And it happened again over the past 5 days. A cluster of 4s came rolling in, a bunch of upper 4s, and then a new 5 struck down here to the southeast. So the cumulative total adds up and spreads across, back to the United States. So the cumulative total adds up and spreads across. So far, you see there's no 4s or 5s across the rest of the plate, but it's lit up, letting us know there's a wave that's going all the way up to Maine, and it's reflected all the way back down to at least Louisiana, and the wave is Over here on the West Coast, it's 4s and 5s. So a lot more power is over on the West Coast, and it should go over to the East Coast. And as it goes across, it should drop off 4s along the way, all the way up to Quebec. So we should see at the Quebec, New Hampshire, Vermont border region, Ontario, Quebec, New Hampshire, Vermont, 4. We should see a swarm on the New Madrid, actually, small earthquakes. We should see a new 4 down in Texas, and we should see a 5 in Southern California, right down by the border. That should all take place in the next 7 days. Okay, so do you have an earthquake plan? If you don't understand any of this, you want to go over it in detail, I've put out directions, step-by-step instructions on how to do your own forecasting and what to look for in the halfway points and standing waves. I show examples of that. And it's called How to Forecast an Earthquake by Dutch Sense. It's very easy to follow if you want to. If you're over in Europe, this is another example. Over in Europe, everything I just showed you in USA, going from the West Coast over to the East Coast. If you go over to Europe, it's doing the same thing, but it's going from the east to the west. But it's doing the same thing. It's going around the outside edge of your plate and Craton edge, and the locations that are getting hit are next to some very interesting things. We could spend time in Europe looking this up some other time. The stuff I found here in Europe, we could talk about it. There are power plants at each location, but we'll go into that at another time for Europe. Much love to everybody. I'm going to record this, hit save on this, and we will get this on YouTube for everybody to watch back. Final point, don't be scared. Now that you understand where earthquakes come from, the seismic wave comes up from deep down in the core of the earth, and then it comes up over in the West Pacific, and it spreads out and away over to the US, over to Europe, over to South America. But now you can watch it come your way. You can know ahead of time when there's a big increase taking place. So when you see a pincushion of earth, a whole bunch of deep earthquakes, letting you know there's some uneasy activity going on down below the plates in the West Pacific, you won't be shocked on the West Coast, for instance, of the US, in a few days, when you start seeing the wave reach over to you again. And if you live down in Southern California, when the 5 hits, or something very close to a 5, 4.9, down in Southern California at the Mexico border, basically, when that hits in the next few days, if you watch this video, you won't be caught off guard. You'll say, oh, there it is. Okay, so we got a 5 up north, we get a 5 down south. Okay, next step is 4s across the plate, right? And it's like, yes, okay, you can understand this. It's more like the weather. So it takes the fear away of the unknown and replaces it with vigilance. And you can watch it come your way like a flood or a river. You can see it come your way, and you hope it's going to divert. You hope it's going to get absorbed. You hope that it wasn't as much rain on the storm that's not going to produce a flood. But you can watch it come your way, which is a big improvement from where we were. Everybody used to think earthquakes were random, they said. Random. Well, I just proved to you that they're happening next to military bases, drill points, and weak points in the plate that are not faults for the most part. Most of these locations happening in next to weak points in the plate that are caused by other things. And that opens up a can of worms on the military stuff. I don't want to go down that road again. But much love. Look out for this. Be prepared. Don't be scared. I know it sounds cheesy, and I know some people are starting to use my tagline. That's my tagline. But you can be prepared for earthquakes by simply having a go bag, as some people call it, or an emergency kit. I don't sell any of that stuff, but a change of clothes, a set of shoes, flashlight and batteries, first aid kit, sanitation. This is all stuff you should already have in your house or your apartment. Just put it into a bag and have it ready to go. It doesn't have to be name brand either. You could skimp on the name brand stuff and hit the dollar store for a lot of the survival gear, at least for 1 to 2 days worth. The long-term stuff, that's an entirely different story. I would always tell people to have long-term survival kit. That includes food and water. You have to think about those things for your 2-day kit as well. But you can that can fit into a backpack. Bottles of water and, of course, high-energy foods, high-protein energy bars, lots of sugar and protein to get you through the first couple days of a disaster. I guess you could have steaks, but if you're cooking steaks outside on day 1 of a disaster, you're going to be a sitting duck target for everybody. They're going to smell it from a mile away. Secondly, you're going to look like a glutton. So I would suggest the energy bars. Yeah, right? Okay. Much love to you. Thank you for listening, and please subscribe to my channel. If you like what I do, please subscribe. I would ask you always to subscribe to my channel if you like my content. Word up, guys. Peace out.